Welcome. Welcome to our meditation together. I think that there's something very profound. I believe there's something very profound when people meditate together, even if it's spread out across the globe and somehow coming together here with this kind of online magic. One of the, I think, radical aspects of this practice we do that I think can be, if we really understand it, very fundamental and make a world of difference, a whole different shift in how we practice and even how we live our lives. And that is to understand this simple principle that there's always only two things happening. That's it. There is what's happening, and then there's our relationship to what's happening. And of course, what's happening can be manifold, all, including everything that happens. But then every moment, how do we then choose to meet that? How do we choose to respond to that? How do we choose to relate to what now is happening? And it's in that relationship that we have some choice in that the Dharma has found. And so the goal of Dharma practice is, simplistically said, to discover a radical experience of non-clinging. Every moment we can find a way of relating to what's happening without clinging. Even if we're clinging, if that's what's happening, we are then relating, we are then interpreting, having commentary, having judgments, having reactions, having a choice with the clinging that has arisen. It's possible to see that, to know that, to relate to that with non-clinging, even if it's just for a moment. So that's a simple way of talking about this, what I think is a radical idea. And every moment we have the opportunity to choose to have simple mindfulness, just simply to know what's there. The next moment there might be more clinging, there might be more difficulties that arise for sure, and it isn't that we need to judge ourselves or criticize ourselves for it. Once it's arisen, it's just an arisen phenomenon. If it already appears, it's almost like we don't have to take responsibility for it, or we don't have to be weighed down by it if it has appeared. All we have to do as Dharma practitioners is to then see the place of practice, but how do I relate to it now? What's the wise relationship to it? And the two things I'll offer is that we don't cling to it. Don't be for or against it. Don't cling. Don't push it away. Don't resist it. Don't hold on to it. Hold it in awareness. Be mindful of it. But be mindful in a way that then, the next thing will arise, and it's there, and then we meet that with the same quality. This is a way of practicing so that the goal of practice, freedom, is found in the means. The means is there with our relationship to things. And that is a radical thing. That is a revolutionary thing to really understand the choice we have, not in what's happening necessarily, and moment by moment what's arising, but then in the next moment how we respond to it. And not being hung up on any response which is not our choice, that's just automatic pilot or something. We as practitioners are constantly finding the place where we have some choice in how we relate. We relate with mindfulness, with awareness, with non-clinging. So, to take a meditation posture in which you are choosing a posture that has a certain can we say even dignity, the dignity of freedom, the uprightness of being a person who has some choice to be here in a embodied way, a rightful way, that we can be here taking our place in this world without any kind of belittling ourselves or short-changing ourselves, to be here metaphorically in an upright way, and perhaps gently closing your eyes and choosing to offer a gentle, caring attention to your body, to scan through your body and relax and soften the places of holding, a kind of physical clinging. And if it doesn't relax, it's completely okay. But to soften the muscles around the eyes, letting the eyes rest in their sockets. To soften the scalp around the temples. Maybe as you exhale, softening the cheeks and the jaw. Relaxing around the mouth. Softening in the shoulders. Shoulders that for many of us will do so much work through the day. The work of clinging, work of holding, work of being afraid. Giving the shoulders a chance to rest. Softening in the chest. Perhaps letting the heart be at ease. Softening in the belly. Letting the belly hang forward or sink down. If you're able to make the belly sink down and relax, sometimes there's a kind of lowering of the body's weight in the torso down towards the pelvic area. Maybe even to a more stable, solid base. And relaxing the muscles of the legs, the thighs, especially around the knees. And then ever so gently, so that your back rib cage and front rib cage both kind of expand. Take a few longer and deeper breaths, gentle, deep breaths. Maybe down into your belly. And as you do so, if it works for you, can you adjust your spine a little bit so that your spine is a little bit more upright, a little bit more alert, that your spine, your back, little bit expresses a confidence of being here now. And finally, see if you can relax the mind. Any pressure or tension in the brain area where you think, softening the mind. But then also with the mind, gather it together. So there's a kind of intentionality and uprightness in the mind, an orientation in the mind, to be clearly aware of what's happening. It's kind of a gathering together, orienting of the mind. Some people call it a focusing of the mind. That the mind is going to be happily, contentedly, hopefully, but determinedly involved in the choice of how we relate to experience. And you might begin that choice with your breathing, and to choose an open, receptive, attentive awareness that rests with the experience of breathing, allows breathing to be whatever way it is. An orientation to experience the breathing without any clinging, just open awareness of breathing. And if something else arises, it just means that this is now this is happening, and you have a choice of how to relate to it. See if you can relate in a way that has no clinging, where perhaps non-clinging and mindfulness occur together. When your mind does wander off, don't first come back to being mindful. First, come back to establishing a relationship to what has just happened that is freeing, that is satisfying. Recognize what's happening without clinging. Remember what your relationship, that part of the practice, that's what makes the biggest difference. Even before you start back with mindfulness. Let yourself be at ease with how things are. Having a relationship of non-clinging is almost the same as having ease. It's okay to let things be, not pick them up, not cling, not push away. It's okay to be free and let them exist in the field of your mindfulness, field of awareness. And then as we come to the end of this sitting, to have the freedom and the ease to choose how we relate to whatever is arising in the moment gives us hopefully an easy opportunity, an easeful opportunity to relate to others with care, with sensitivity and respect, with valuing all people, and to relate to them with kindness and care and goodwill. To take the time to allow the eyes of the heart, eyes of love, to gaze upon others with appreciation, with goodwill, with compassion. And so that what might arise from inside of us is a desire to practice, live for the benefit of self and others, for the welfare of self and others, for the freedom of self and others. And may it be that it is our heart's aspiration, our heart's wish, that all beings be happy, that all beings be safe, that all beings be healthy, that all beings be free of oppression, that all beings be free. So we come this morning to the fourth question that we can ask ourselves when we want to speak wisely, effectively. And the fourth question is it beneficial? Is it for the welfare of self and others? And so a statement might be true. A statement that what we're going to say might be timely. It's the right time. A statement we say might be done kindly, supportingly, nourishing. The way we say it might be gentle and appropriate. However, the person we're talking to, the situation we're in, what we're going to say has no benefit. Maybe because people are not going to listen to it. People are closed off from hearing it, too distracted. And so it's not beneficial to say it. And because it has no impact, it has no onward leading purpose. It has no purpose to say it if it's not going to be received. And so rather than exhausting ourselves by insisting we have to say it because it's true, because we're struggling, because we're trying to solve a problem and make things better, of course, ideally we would have a chance to have a conversation if that's the case. But if it's not going to go anywhere, if there's no benefit from saying it, there's no receptivity to what we're saying, why tire ourselves out? Why exhaust ourselves? Maybe we need to wait until it is beneficial. So it comes back to the idea as a timely. For you it might be timely, it might be the only time, but still, if it's not beneficial to say it, has no purpose to say it because it's not received, then maybe it's not the time to say it. Maybe it's not the thing to say. Or if we ask ourselves the question, is it beneficial? Then we can say, well, actually, saying the truth right now is not beneficial. Saying the truth kindly is not really beneficial right now. This is not what the person needs to hear. This is not leading onward. Now, the word benefit here is a very significant word. How do we know what's beneficial? How do we know what is welfare for people? One of the meanings for this word in Pali is atta, is it has a purpose. So to speak for a purpose. So in other words, don't speak pointlessly. Don't just speak because you want to speak. Don't speak the truth. Don't speak the truth kindly. And in some way, if it's kindly and timely. But don't if it doesn't really have a purpose. So when you ask the question, is it beneficial, is also a very powerful version of that question, is to ask yourself, for what purpose am I saying what I'm going to say? What is the purpose? And there can be multiple layers of purpose in what we say. If someone asks you for directions on the street, you could say the purpose of responding was to give them the directions. But there might be a deeper layer where we really want to impress people we're with that we know the right directions, and we never want to be wrong. And there was one country I visited where it seemed like I was told that no one will ever admit that they don't know the directions. So you have to ask at least 2 or 3 people, because the first person might give you a wrong direction just because they think they have to do something. So maybe there's one to impress, maybe below that is a fear of rejection, or fear that people will judge us negatively if we don't give a good. And so there's all these layers of purposes when we speak, there are things going on. And to ask the question, what's the purpose that I have for saying something, can really be valuable, because sometimes the purpose for saying something is not really the wisest purpose. And to really understand ourselves well enough to understand why we're going to say what we're going to say, even the truth, even kindly, is very, very important. But what's interesting is the expression the Buddha uses to talk about, to speak what is beneficial, is actually a compound word. And the word for beneficial, atta, has many meanings. And can be welfare, benefit, advantage. It also apparently can also mean like a blessing, speak what is a blessing. It can also mean speak what's purposeful, for a purpose. It can mean speak what is related to the goal. And so in Buddhism sometimes atta refers to the ultimate goal of liberation and freedom. So but it's a compound word, and the second half is samhita. And samhita means possessed with, or connected with, endowed with. Speak endowed with benefit. Speak endowed with the purpose. Speak connected to the goal. And that relates to what I did in the guided meditation, is that it isn't not only speak what's beneficial for a purpose. Is this beneficial for the person I'm speaking to? Is this beneficial for what's going to happen in a situation? But speak speak in a way that's beneficial now. Speak in a way that's connected or endowed with the purpose of Buddhism, the goal of Buddhism. If the goal is to not cling, speak in a way that has no clinging in it. If the goal of Buddhism is to be free of greed, hate, and delusion, this is one of the primary ways the Buddha talks about the goal of liberation, of enlightenment, is the absence of greed, hatred, and confusion or delusion. So can a way we speak partake of that? Can it be endowed with elements of that? And so then this fourth criteria really is now connecting speech to our practice itself. It's really saying speech itself can be endowed with practice, can be as rich as a form of practice as meditation practice. Because the core aspect of Buddhism, Buddhist practice, is not just to be mindful. The core aspect is to be mindful so that we can be in the world without clinging, without greed, hatred, and delusion. And nowadays, with all the hatred that's going on in our society, it's even more important to understand the value of non-hatred. And it's maybe more important to speak up for truth, for what's right, for the ending of brutality and harm and hatred, and economic exploitation, all these things that go on in our society, in our world as a whole. It's important to speak up for it, against it. But it's also important to do so endowed with liberation, endowed with the qualities of the goal of practice itself. The means in practice, the means to freedom, should contain elements of the goal. It's not that the means and the goal are the same, but the means should reflect, mirror the goal. And so this is where the topic of this issue of what's happening and our relationship to it is so important. It's in the relationship we have that we can begin exercising and finding and practicing pieces of that goal, pieces of non-clinging, non-greed, non-hatred, non-confusion. And we're not confused if we know we can always be mindful. We're not confused if we know that the purpose of all we're doing is really to do what we're doing without clinging. There's one of the purposes, and there are multiple layers of purposes. So speaking can be an integral, essential form of Buddhist practice. I hope that we speak. I hope that we learn to speak well and speak up and speak strongly and clearly for all kinds of issues, with our friends, our family, when we need to speak up and be clear. In our society, when we need to stand up for civil rights, we need to stand up against brutality, against the harm that people are doing to each other in all directions, in all political directions, in all kinds of ways. Of course we should speak up. But can we speak up? Can we speak remembering that we're practicing? We're practicing for the greatest benefit, the greatest welfare of self and others. And the greatest welfare is found through exercising our freedom to relate to what's happening without any greed, without any hatred whatsoever, without any confusion or delusion about what's going on. This is radical. So to ask ourselves when we were speaking the question, is it beneficial, is a rich and very important, multifaceted question. Is it beneficial for purpose? Is it purposeful, beneficial purpose? Is it spoken in a beneficial way? Is it spoken in a way that's endowed with qualities of liberation itself? Is it endowed with non-clinging? And as I said in this guided meditation, we will cling. Unless we're fully enlightened, clinging will happen. The important question, when we see it, how do we relate to that? And to then not cling to the clinging. When we do have impulses which we're not, shouldn't be acted on, that are harmful or difficult aspects of ourselves that arise, of course things like that arise. The important thing is not that we have these things, difficult thoughts, even hate, that arises. The important thing is, do we see it and do we relate to it in a way that is non-clinging, without picking it up, without being involved, without saying it. So if we can ask ourselves the question, is it beneficial in all the ways I'm talking about? And it turns out the answer is no, in significant ways. Then don't say it. Or what might be needed is find the inner strength to not say it. It's hard sometimes not to speak. The impulse to speak, the drive to speak, the need to speak is so strong. It's so connected to the deep emotional reservoirs or experiences that we have. But if it's going to cause harm, don't say it in a way that causes harm. Find a different way to speak. Find a way to speak about what's happening for you, what's happening in the world, what's going on, in a way that is beneficial, has a good purpose, and is endowed with, connected to the goal of practice itself, connected to freedom, connected to compassion, to love. That would be to speak what is beneficial. So, thank you, and so we have one more to do tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Thank you.